All right, guys, I am back here and I'm joined by Mark Vanlerberg, who is the Chief Marketing Officer or CMO at the Algorand Foundation. Mark, it's a pleasure having you here today to talk about what Algorand has brewing. So many exciting angles here right now in the market. We'll get into some macro later, but really just want to kind of focus on you first. I mean, you assumed this new role in March of 2024, but you've got a plethora of experience, decades of experience in similar roles. And of course, you helped build the Android brand during your tenure at Google. So just want to kind of take the audience through your path and kind of what led you to Algorand. And again, welcome.
Yeah, Zach. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and great to be here. And you make me feel really old if you talk about like decades of experience, but I guess that's what it is. So yes, I joined the Algorand Foundation about a year ago now, slightly over a year. And going back in my career, I spent the longest period of my career actually at Google, close to 10 years, where I was the chief marketing officer for Android. And I still remember starting at Google. I started about a year before the first Android phone was launched. It was called the T-Mobile G1, if you remember, first ever Android phone. So I joined Google about a year before that phone launched. So we worked close to a year with T-Mobile and with HTC on the launch of that first phone. And so it was a crazy time. So learned a lot in the process.
What brought you to Algorand and Web3?
So I've been very interested in Web3 for a long time, and I remember going to the first kind of blockchain conference in San Francisco, which was, I believe, in 2000. I don't remember exactly, 2018 or even before that. I don't remember, but and I thought it was very interesting. I always was fascinated by the whole philosophy of blockchain, the whole idea of decentralization, the whole idea of you could basically own something properly, and so I was always very fascinated by the philosophy, but also how the technology made that work. The combination of like economics with cryptography and computer science and living in this kind of intersection between these things was just fascinating to me. And so I've been kind of following and tracking the industry for quite a while. I've made some investments as well. Been part of a limited partner in a venture fund that's specifically focused on crypto investments as well. So and I've been kind of eyeing and like wondering like what can I do, what kind of role could I potentially play, because I wanted to kind of jump into the ecosystem, but never really figured out the right way in. And then this opportunity with Algorand came around, and I jumped right in, and I just love it. I just love being part of it.
So you're here at the Algorand Foundation now. Just had basically your 1 year anniversary,
Yes.
and of course, you're overseeing global marketing strategies. Obviously, that includes, I assume, communication, branding, content creation, campaigns, social media, and I'm happy to be working with Algorand just recently here in the last couple months. But how have you seen things change since you've got in, and what type of things are you kind of implementing in this new role?
Yeah. So, well, I got actually very lucky when I started. I remember I was only here for a couple of weeks, and one of my big priorities has always been to really listen to the community and work very closely with the community, because that's, as you know, in any kind of crypto project, the community is really everything. And so I've been kind of very closely listening to what was going on and how people felt about things. And I was here about 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks maybe. And so somebody in the community texted me this elaborate script of like, hey Mark, here's a script of comparing Algorand with Solana and with Ethereum and with Bitcoin. And you should basically take that script and you film it. And I was reading it, and it was about a supermarket and people trying to check out and pay with Bitcoin versus somebody checking out with Ethereum versus Solana and versus Algorand. And so it was very well done and very well written. So I figured like, yeah, why not? Let's go do this. And so within a couple of weeks, we actually filmed the entire script that he recommended. And then we launched it in early May, and it just went completely viral. which was super cool to see. But that was kind of my start at the foundation. So I got very lucky that somebody in the ecosystem kind of gave me like the nuggets that I could just turn into kind of a very viral moment for Algorand. And so that was kind of the start. But what it made you realize, and the reason why it basically went viral, and the reason, and of course, a lot of people on the ETH maxis got upset, and the Bitcoin maxis got upset, and the Solana maxis got upset, which was, part of the fun, obviously. But what it made you realize is that it basically hit on a fundamental truth. And it hit on a fundamental truth, which is that if you think about blockchains that are built for real world scale, Algorand really has a unique position in that space because we are built for real world scale. Like, we don't fail. The transactions go through instantly. We have instant finality. We have high throughput and high speed. And so we are the chain that is really built for real world scale. And the others are not. And that's what the video actually was communicating in a kind of funny way. But it really hit on the core truth of what Algorand is and how Algorand is different from any other blockchain out there. And that has been kind of the kernel and the core of our marketing strategy, which is get the message across that Algorand is the chain that is built for real world scale. And we've seen over the last year, we've seen a significant growth in terms of number of transactions and the number of wallets, the number of real world asset projects that are launching on Algorand. And so it's been very exciting to see the growth over the last 12 months.
You led me perfectly into some of those projects because I definitely want to unpack that. I've come to realize that this whole RWA narrative is not going away. And I think it's probably, in my opinion, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts here too, it's probably the biggest sector for potential growth in terms of when we, merge TradFi into DeFi. And I think we're seeing that, with the likes of, Larry Fink at BlackRock immediately shifting the conversation to RWA after getting a couple ETFs through. And, a really interesting angle. And I know there's a project called Lofty building on Algorand. This whole idea of tokenizing real estate, right? But I know that's only a piece of it. Like, which projects, I guess, right now are you kind of, looking at on Algorand saying, wow, this is something first of its kind, or something that, really could be something big. And I know how hard it is to kind of stand out amongst the crowd because a lot of people are trying to, hit on this narrative. What makes Algorand so great for tokenization, RWA, that whole narrative to flourish?
Yeah. So I think there's two reasons why I think tokenization is such a powerful use case. The first one is it's all about democratizing access, right? You take a big, lumpy asset, you break it up into small pieces, and people can basically buy a piece of it. And of course, the example that you mentioned, of course, is Lofty and real estate, is where you take big lumpy asset, a house, and you break it up in small parts. And now I can buy a piece of a house for as low as $50. I think that's that's the first kind of really big benefit of tokenization. I think the second big benefit is the innovation that it brings, because now you can make that once you've tokenized something, it becomes digital and it becomes transferable and it becomes tradable, and so you can get a lot of like innovation from turning that into kind of a new type of market. To take the example of Lofty again, is like you can create a secondary market, right? You can basically submit your tokens into a liquidity pool that enables a secondary market to emerge. And now you can basically trade your real estate tokens in the same way as you buy and sell stock on NASDAQ. So it becomes a super liquid type of investment opportunity, which real estate has never really been in the past. It's never been a really liquid type of investment, but you turn it into a liquid investment. You can also take your tokens and you can use it as collateral. You can use it as collateral to get a loan in USDC or in Algo and whatever you want, and then you can basically reinvest and use the proceeds from that. And so it opens up a whole series of kind of innovations that are not possible with traditional kind of financial instruments. And so that, I think, is what makes tokenization so powerful as an opportunity. So now talking about tokenization on Algorand, we talked about real estate, obviously, and Lofty, I think, is a prime example of that, and they're doing incredibly well. I personally invested in a number of these properties, and it's super exciting because you are a part owner, and you actually get to participate in the voting process. It's like it's when the ownership has to decide on the rent, or they have to decide on making an investment in upgrading the kitchen or doing something like that. You, as a co-owner, you basically get to be part of those decisions, and you get to be part on like approving or disapproving the use of funds in any property where you own a stake. So I think it's really very interesting and very exciting. So Lofty is one example. Of course, the biggest example of tokenization are the stable coins, right? Like USDC, we have USDC from Circle. We have EuroD, which is a MiCA compliant stablecoin in Europe, issued by Qantas. And you'll see a lot more stablecoins actually arriving on Algorand in the next, I would say, weeks. So there's several stablecoins that are going to launch on Algorand very soon. So stablecoins, of course, are a big component. Tokenizing stocks, like there's only one US stock that has been tokenized on a blockchain, and it's the stock from Exodus, and it's tokenized on Algorand. So that's another use case which I think is super interesting. And I can go on. There's commodities. I mean, gold and silver have been tokenized. There's a project called Melt Gold that is tokenizing gold and silver. We have agricultural commodities that have been tokenized on Algorand as well. Soybeans, grains. There's a company called AgroToken that does that. And the benefit there is more of a B2B kind of arrangement, right? Because you as a consumer will not buy the soybeans. But by tokenizing soybeans and stuff like that, they can use that as a collateral to get bank loans. And so again, very interesting use case. We talked about some financial product, treasuries, money market funds. Aberdeen, a big money market fund issuer in Europe, is tokenized on Algorand as well. And I can go on like this. There's many more. There's actually some interesting ones I can talk to you about if you're interested, that are non-financial in nature, that are kind of interesting use cases. One of them is anything has to do with carbon offsets and insets. We have a company, it's a European company called 123 Carbon, and what they do, they tokenize carbon insets. And what a carbon inset is basically allows big companies that invest in allows big companies to invest in their own supply chain to green their supply chain. So, for instance, let's say you're Walmart, right, and you want to become greener, and you want to. Typically, what you would do, you would buy carbon offsets, which means you buy some, trees in the Brazilian rainforest and then use that to offset your carbon. But it'd be more interesting if you buy carbon insets, which means you talk to your logistics partners, the people that basically ship goods from China or wherever they come from, they ship them to the US. What if those shippers invest in better energy, right? Is there a way that you could, as Walmart, invest directly in greening your own supply chain and helping your shipping companies to create better fuels and invest in higher fuels? That's what carbon insets do. So instead of buying a forest, or trees in the forest in Brazil, you're basically investing in your own logistics chain and allowing them to green. So now your entire footprint actually goes down. So that's an example of that. And again, it's the carbon insets are tokenized on Algorand. And then there's some very new kind of like use cases that are super interesting. One is TravelX, right, which is tokenizing airline tickets. And they're doing this at scale. Roughly 70% of all domestic flights in Mexico, are now tokenized on Algorand, which is absolutely tremendous. And so what that enables, it enables users to basically buy a ticket and not be stuck with the ticket, right? If you can't make your flight, you can just sell your ticket because it's just tokenized. You can just transmit it from one person to the other. And for the airline, it's great because they can actually do revenue management as well. So they can put offers in front of consumers to buy back cheap tickets and then sell them more expensively if a flight is oversold. So there's benefits all around. And then the last example I want to give, and I can keep talking, but I'm sure you have more questions. But the last example I'm going to give, which I'm very excited about, is a company called Enel. Enel is the world's second largest energy utility company. I think their revenue is about $100 billion, if I'm not mistaken. They are operating most of the energy production in Italy. They're very big in Spain, in Latin America as well. And so what they decided to do is they started offering solar panels, tokenized solar panels. So what that means is, as a consumer, you can now buy a solar panel without having to physically install it on your roof. You get all the benefits of a solar panel in terms of the energy production and the revenue that comes from that, without the hassle of having to install it on your roof. And it's not just a hassle. It's like many companies just can't install a solar panel on their roof because they're renting, or they live in a condo or an apartment complex where you don't have access to the roof, right? Or you live in Italy, you live in a historical city center where the government will not allow you to put a solar panel on your roof. So now you can get all the benefits of a solar panel without having to physically install it on your roof. And that's what they now launched a couple of months ago. It's now rolling out. And I think that's a very exciting use case of tokenization as well. And I'll stop there. But yeah, I have more examples if you want.
This is great. This is great. And, so it's clear, to me that the Algorand ecosystem is going heavy into RWA. So what from the foundation allows for this? Are there any big updates, upgrades, things you can speak to that have kind of opened these doors for some of these great companies that you've referenced here to build on Algorand? Is there something that Algorand has that other L1s don't?
Yeah, so, well, I think there's two aspects to this, right? One is the quality of the technology itself and the blockchain itself. And so, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are a blockchain that has been built for a real world scale, which means that we have instant finality. So this is really important if you're thinking about financial transactions, right? Like every single time you do a financial transaction, you want to make sure where the money is. The money can't be just floating around for like 10, 15, 20 seconds and you don't know who's owning what. That is just like, try to explain to a TradFi that this is happening. It's like people are saying like, this is insane, right? Like, so instant finality solves this problem. As soon as a transaction is in a block, it's confirmed in a block, it's final, and it can't change. The high throughput, the fact that we don't fail ever, all of these things are inherent in how the blockchain operates, and so give these RWA providers great confidence that they have a robust network that they can build upon. So that's part one. The second part, which is unique about Algorand, is really the ability to make development as productive as possible. So we have this thing called Algo Kit, which is a developer SDK. So we've tried everything that we could possibly think of to make developing on Algorand as easy as it possibly is. And so AlgoKit supports one of the big strategic decisions that we took when we started building AlgoKit was to basically meet developers where they are. Like, we don't want developers to have to learn a new language or set up a new developer environment and all of that stuff. So instead, we decided, okay, what are the most popular programming languages out there? And can we natively support these programming languages on Algorand? And that's what we've been working on. So last year, we launched Python support, native Python support. So if you're a Python developer now, you can easily start developing on Algorand. You can use your existing tools, your existing development environment, and you can just build, on Algorand like right away. And then just last week, actually, we launched a new version of AlgoKit that now natively supports TypeScript. So again, same thing. If you're a TypeScript developer, we now natively support you, and you can use your existing tools, your existing dev environment, and you can start building on Algorand. So it's a combination of those two things. One is a chain that's really built for real-world scale that makes it easier for people to build upon. And then the second one is the support of native languages like TypeScript and Python.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah. And I think that's so important, especially in a world where there's all these L1s, they're jockeying for position. making it easy, right? And making creating an environment where developers want to come and build on that chain, because let's face it, there's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of choices. There's a lot of competition in the marketplace, and but it's clear that, to me, Algorand has a leg up, especially in this RWA space. You listed off a
And
number of examples.
to give you an example, like last year, a company called Settlement that is in a B2B payment space, they migrated from Ethereum to Algorand. And the key reason why they did so is because they said that their engineering productivity went up sixfold.
Wow.
So they used to spend more than half of their engineering resources on blockchain integration, right? Because they had to work, they had to develop in these kind of weird languages. They had to figure out ways around the fact that there's no instant finality, that they had to create a smart contract for everything, right? And so with Algorand, a bunch of these things are just built into the core protocol, right? And so you don't have to do a smart contract if you create a token. You don't have to do a smart contract for multisig. You don't have to do a smart contract for atomic swaps. And so they saved a huge amount of time. And so can you imagine you're a software company and you go to your CTO or your CEO and you say half of the time of my engineers have to be focused on blockchain integration as opposed to like building a product that people can actually use? That's insanity, right? In the case of Algorand, maybe less than 10% of their time is spent on blockchain integration. So 90% of all the engineering time is spent on building a product that people can use. And that's the way it's supposed to be, right? It's not supposed to be the case that half of your time is going towards blockchain integration.
Right. That's a great point. Mark, this has been awesome. I want to kind of close this up with more of a macro look. And everybody out there listening, watching, there will be a bunch of links down below to some of the projects we talked about, the Algorand Foundation. Make sure you go follow them. And I'll leave all those links down below. And but I want to take it a little bit more macro and talk about just the environment here for blockchain, for crypto to flourish. It's been obviously, any new technology being adopted is going to go through some hurdles, but it feels like, we're finally at this point or on the cusp of a big breakthrough moment. Do you agree with that? What could you speak to, related to kind of the macro and where we are in terms of adoption?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. First of all, yes, I'm very bullish because I feel specifically in the US, the regulatory environment is changing very rapidly, and I think the thing that was just really, really painful is just the uncertainty and the inability for companies to know what is okay and what is not okay. And that is just like, that drove innovation out of the US. Like a lot of the innovation that was happening in Europe and Asia, because people didn't dare to innovate in the US. And that's just crazy. And so finally, I think that will get resolved. I think there's a stablecoin kind of plan that hopefully will go through Congress in the next quarter or so. And so I think that'll provide a lot of clarity as to how companies are supposed to operate in the US, and that will hopefully bring a lot of blockchain innovation back to the US. So I'm very, very bullish about that. I'm also quite bullish about the combination of blockchain and AI. And I think that's another area where we spend a lot of time thinking about this. And so specifically, when you think about where AI is going with the integration of agents and the moving towards like AI systems taking action, I think there's a lot of opportunities to really combine blockchain and AI. And so one of the big trends that we see now is around MCPs. MCP servers being created, which are basically extensions to LLMs that allow LLMs to take action. So we recently released an Algorand MCP, which now allows agents from ChatGPT to Claude to basically interact with the Algorand blockchain without having to write a single piece of code. You can just talk to the agent and tell the agent, create an account, and the agent will create an account for you. Move money from here to there, and the agent will do it. And so that, I think, will open up an enormous amount of opportunities as well. And so I'm very excited about that component as well.
Yeah, this has been exciting. I can't wait to sit down again, and I'm sure this year. As fast as things change and develop in Web3, I'm sure we're going to have some more opportunities to talk about updates and future things that are happening on Algorand. So, Mark, thanks so much for joining me. Stick around for a minute until after I close the video. We'll chat for a few. But for everybody out there listening, watching, make sure you do subscribe to the channel and check out all the links down below. And thank you guys so much. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Zach. Great talking to you.